Ferdinand Porsche wasn't born into an age of machines. He helped create it. As a teenager in Bohemia, he wired his parents' home for electricity, not because they needed it, but because he couldn't stand stillness. Motion, even electrical motion, was his native language. People who knew him said he didn't think in words, he thought in mechanisms. He'd stare at a problem with that sharp, restless gaze of his, then sketch solutions faster than most engineers could understand them. Electric wheel hub motors, hybrid drives decades before the world had a name for them, air-cooled flat engines that ran like mechanical lungs. He was equal parts artist and engineer, stubbornly convinced that physics should bow to imagination. And that's what made him dangerous as well as brilliant. In the turbulence of 1930s Germany, when the Nazi regime offered unlimited budgets and total creative freedom, Porsche stepped forward. Not as an ideologue, he despised politics, but as a man who believed technology transcended morality. It didn't. Under the regime's patronage, he designed the Volkswagen, a people's car with an engine so simple you could almost fix it with a screwdriver and a prayer. But parallel to this friendly shape, Porsche pursued darker projects where his genius ran unchecked. He built engines that pushed boundaries of torque and temperature. He experimented with hybrid electric-mechanical systems for tanks. He designed suspensions that looked like they belonged on lunar rovers. He created the Tiger's complex drivetrain, a masterpiece on paper, a maintenance nightmare in mud. And he developed air-cooled V10 behemoths that could move 180-ton vehicles like the Mouse, a tank so large it cracked roads. He even tried to break into aviation, lightweight Volksflug engines, experimental aircraft diesels. But the Luftwaffe never entrusted its core fighter fleet to him. Porsche dreamed of the sky, but the regime chained him to the earth. These machines were feats of engineering brilliance, but they were built through forced labor and deployed for destruction. And when the war ended, the weight of that truth fell on him like wreckage. The Allies arrested him as a suspected war criminal. A genius who once commanded factories was now an old man in a French prison. His health failing, his name toxic. His company, if you could still call it that, sat in ruins. And then came the reversal no one expected. His son, Ferdinand Porsche, refused to let the name die. With almost no money, no factory, and no political goodwill, Ferry gathered a small team. They bartered for parts. They welded by hand. They reused old Volkswagen tools. And from this scavenged ecosystem, they created a sports car unlike anything post-war Europe had seen, the Porsche 356. Light, playful, air-cooled, because that was Ferdinand's obsession. It was the engineering philosophy of a man the world no longer trusted, filtered through a son who wanted to redeem him. While Ferdinand wasted away in prison, the 356 hit racetracks. It didn't have the brute power of his tanks or the industrial backing of his war machines, but it danced. It slipped through corners like a painter's brushstroke. And when Ferdinand was released, frail and diminished, Ferry took him to watch one race. People say he leaned forward, eyes brightening as the car accelerated. For the first time in years, he saw his genius unburdened. A machine that moved with grace, not violence. His ideas reborn in a better world. 2 years later, Ferdinand Porsche died, but the company that carried his name accelerated into legend. And then came James Dean, young, rebellious, radiant with danger, driving a Porsche 550 Spyder, a silver arrow that embodied everything Ferdinand had spent decades perfecting: low weight, mid-engine balance, an air-cooled heart beating like a fist. Dean's death should have doomed the brand. Instead, it baptized it. The Porsche became a symbol not of safety, but of freedom. Speed became story, mechanics became mythology. But the world keeps changing, and myths age. Porsche entered the 21st century facing a challenge Ferdinand never imagined. Environmental laws tightened, electrification spread, and suddenly Porsche's greatest technical signatures, the flat six roar, the mechanical purity, the analog precision, were considered outdated. The company survived by expanding. Cayenne, Macan, Panamera, practical machines that paid the bills but diluted the soul. And then the Taycan arrived, electric, devastatingly fast, beautifully engineered. Yet here lies the quiet tragedy. Where Ferdinand had pushed physics through force of imagination, modern electrification made speed generic. Instant torque is no longer wizardry. Any EV can be blisteringly quick. Porsche's old magic became everyone's standard feature. So now Porsche faces the question that haunted Ferdinand's final years. What is the point of engineering genius in a world that no longer worships mechanical craft? Maybe Porsche becomes a heritage brand, preserving the sensation of motion from a disappearing age. Maybe it reinvents motion again, the way Ferdinand always tried to. Or maybe the world is quietly preparing for life without the speedster, without the mechanical heartbeat that once made James Dean immortal and Ferdinand Porsche unstoppable. A man who tried to conquer physics, a company that tried to outrun its past, and a future that asks whether we still want to go fast. Because Ferdinand Porsche built engines. He built ideas. He built monsters and masterpieces. And now the question is whether the machines he inspired can evolve into something the world still needs, or whether the age of motion he helped ignite is finally coming to a stop. And while Porsche fights for its future in a world that no longer worships speed, another story is waiting just around the bend. A story about a man who didn't build engines, he built identity. A man who lifted a defeated nation onto the global stage using nothing but sound, style, and sheer force of taste. He didn't chase horsepower, he chased culture, and he won. Next time on Founder Files, the tale of the quiet revolutionary who taught the world to listen again. Sony's Akio Morita. Now I want to hear from you. Which founder, company, or rise and fall story should we cover next? Drop your ideas in the comments, and it might just become the next episode of The Founder Files.